Hello, good evening. Okay, welcome to the new week over here. Okay, we'll get started for today's session over here. Okay, so now today is basically the US holiday, so the market you can expect it to just be quiet. Good. Okay, so stock market will also be closed, right? So just okay. Wow, yeah. Okay, yeah, so I was saying that basically we're having the US holiday. So general market will be pretty quiet. We did not really see much movement anyway, on Monday. But this week here there are two general events that you want to pay attention. One is the RBA, which is basically tomorrow afternoon, and the other one is the Bank of Canada (BOC) coming in on Wednesday. Okay. Now, if you look at the expectation, basically right now the market is pricing in the fact that we may not see any changes in interest rate, both from RBA as well as Bank of Canada. The expectation in terms of the Fed, okay, is basically also not likely gonna hike all the way until November. Okay, so right now I think we're in a period where kind of like in the crossroad in terms of are we gonna see maybe one more hike within the year itself, or that's about it, and next year we're starting to talk about potential of cutting. Okay, so this really depends on how the economic performance of the various countries are going to develop from here on. Okay, so what this means to you from a fundamental point of view, keeping track of the economic performance is that you want to look into two things, right? One is of course inflationary pressure. Whether is it still putting pressure into the banks to need to hike rates, and the other aspect is the resilience of the economy, right? So you want to take note of in terms, unemployment rate, labor market data, consumer confidence, PMIs coming from industrial production as well. Okay, so all those are key information that will drop us more clue. Um, I'll just mute my. Okay, so that will give us more clue in terms of okay, what I want to say. Yeah, basically that will give us more clue in terms of like what the economy is doing. Okay, and that would then help us to understand from a fundamental point of view. Would we be looking at a chance of more hike, or that's about it, and then we'll start to pivot from there on. Okay, so that's basically from a fundamental perspective. Okay, now of course having the fundamental top flow is important, at least at the backdrop. Okay, to kind of find some alignment or confluence whenever you look at trades based on the technical perspective. Okay, so if you look into the charts on the dollar index first. Okay, now this week there is a good possibility we're gonna see a little bit more upside. Now we don't have any important news from the dollar coming in this week. Okay, the only two key ones are the Australian dollar as well as the Canadian. So with that said, I think the chance of the dollar to actually carry on a little bit of momentum to the upside from last week's Friday closing price, it's pretty high. Okay, so right now for dollar index, and of course translate that to some of the major currency pairs, we are looking at short-term bullish on dollar. Okay, so any corrective pullback within this week, you need to give it a little bit of time. I mean, today is just slow. Maybe give it tomorrow, give it Wednesday. If it develops into a very nice little corrective pullback, naturally that will be a buy, a short-term buy to the upside. Okay, so in the case of dollar index, what we're seeing over here is we may target a potential area around 104.85, okay, to give us a fifth wave completion ideally. Okay, Now, if the dollar is going to strengthen, of course, euro here, we're looking at more downside here as well. So over here, you can see Friday's movement basically is impulsive to the downside. So kind of get a V. Now, same thing here, wait for a corrective pullback if you can get that, a short-term sell. Okay, the target here is basically at 1.07. That is essentially taking from this leg to this leg. Okay, and then this would be the retracement, and it will map it over here, right? 1:1. So again, it's not a, I don't think, it's just going to keep falling. At one point in time, we're probably going to see a little bit more of a deeper correction. So any sell here, I would say you may just want to target around 1.07 and then take profit and just observe how price is going to develop and then make a decision after that. Okay, so that's on the euro side of things. GBP, basically more or less the same. Okay, any corrective pullback, we're basically expecting one more drop. Okay, so this one here is a little bit different. So we're seeing this as a 1, 2, 3. Okay, this one here is a 1, 2, 3. So that's one set, this one set, and we're likely developing a 3-wave move down. Okay, so same thing here. I think targets is about 1.25. If you can get that, just take profit and then look for another trade after which. Okay, yep, so wait for a corrective pullback. So again, today is slow. Okay, so today is slow. Give it a little bit of time. See if you can get a little bit of a corrective structure like that. Then take the sell to the downside. Okay, Aussie dollar here as well. Quite similar, bearish. But again, all this major pairs here, right? You pretty see they are more of like a short-term potential trade. The reason again is, we have been moving for the majors like Euro, Pound, and Aussie. We've been seeing them moving in a particular direction for some time, right? And we do not want to overly extend some of the targets over here. Okay, so any kind of trade that we're looking to sell in the majors, they're basically short term, right? Because again, when the market is already extended to some point in time, it will likely do a bigger or deeper retracement. Okay, so you don't want to be overly aggressive and look for extended targets. If you can catch, some short term move, that will be it for this week itself. Okay, so Aussie dollar here is also pretty neat. Personally, I kind of took a trade up here. Of course, it's taking some time. It's very slow. But it's basically a risk-free trade, right? Which shift stops to break even and see if this can just continue to drop. Target-wise is at around 633. Okay, 0.633, right? So all the majors are pretty much aligned, which is a good sign, right? Basically means we have an alignment and a confluence in terms of the dollar strength, and then euro, dollar, pound, dollar, Aussie dollar, all showing similar directional in terms of technical perspective. Okay, now dollar CAD and the dollar yen is where I'm gonna be neutral. The part here is because we don't really have a clear structure wise. Okay, now this here, if you get a corrective pullback, I don't think it's a very good idea to actually look for the buy. The part here is this may develop a little bit of a double top, or okay, it may extend a little bit, break it, but then after that a reversal. So for me, dollar CAD is not the best play for dollar strength, okay, at least for a short run. And of course, on Canadian over here, we do have the BOC coming in on Wednesday, and then we have another Canadian labor market data on Friday, right? So that might create some volatility. You may look into news trade strategy to capitalize on the short-term movement, okay? But other than that, I think you probably would just want to be patient with this particular pair. Dollar yen, more or less the same. We have a little bit of upside potential over here. Okay, so same thing here, wait for a pullback correctively. Okay, and then you can look for an up trade here with target around 148.20, right? Again, short-term bullish, and that's about it. Okay, so the major pairs, the dollar, are pretty much aligned except for the dollar Canadian. Okay, so gold here, because dollar, we're looking at potential strength, pretty much aligned with gold here as well. We're looking at a little bit of a pullback. So if you're a swing trade, obviously you won't be too keen in selling this. It's not gonna be like a huge profit potential. It's just a short-term potential. But if you're more of an intraday, shorter-term trades, you can definitely consider a sell, right? We're kind of expecting a pullback after the market completes a very nice little three-wave structure. We do expect a deeper pullback towards 50 and 618 before the continuation back up. So this week, there's a good chance with dollar strengthening, with the alignment coming from DXY. Gold here seems to be doing a pullback. Okay, so any short-term sell trades, you may want to just look at targets around like maybe 1920. If it hits that zone, probably just want to exit, and this may start to bounce back up. Okay, so there are opportunities on gold here as well. Now, crude oil here is definitely bullish right now based on what we see last Friday. Okay, so that move, I think, without doubt, it's an impulsive push, right? It even took out this high here impulsively. So any kind of corrective pullback is definitely a buy. Personally, wouldn't suggest you to be looking at sell after a strong push like that. Don't buy it at the top. But the idea here is we're focusing on buy opportunity, but wait for a corrective pullback before you jump in and buy it, right? So basically, it takes time, and I think if you are looking at this on a forward scale, probably within this week there won't be much. Okay, you just want to wait, and maybe the setup will come to you next week itself. Okay, so that's on WTI. S&P over here, I think short term we're likely going to see a little bit of a pullback, okay, which is very much similar to gold. Okay, in terms of the technical developments, we have 1, 2, 3. This looks a little bit of a crawl, so there's a good possibility we'll see a little bit of a downside. Now, whether are we going to be a continuation of a huge move to the downside, or is this just going to be a minor kind of pullback and then continuation upside? I think right now there's no need to be overly concerned on whether this is going to be just stalling here or this can keep going, right? The reason of me saying that, right, that you don't need to be concerned with it right now is because if you're interested in this trade, okay, by the time the market reach here, you would have managed it accordingly and maybe take profits off a little bit of it, and you can leave the remaining running if this actually takes off. Now, again, the market would not just go one direction all the time. Okay, so what can happen is this can drop even if you take full profits off here, and this starts to do a correction here. It gives you that clue, and it gives you sufficient time to reassess and say, okay, this may continue to drop. Let's take another sell. Right? So I think for S&P, okay, what you want to be looking out for this week, again, is to just look at the short-term bearish opportunity. Take profit here. And of course, if you want, you can do some partial profits and then let the remaining position run if that's the case. But S&P here is presenting some decent opportunity, right? So one very simple way of technical entry is just look for a swing low and then execute a breakout trade if the market actually breaks below impulsively, right? So there are a few alignments that I think is pretty good for the S&P. Okay. So one is from a technical point of view, we completed this. We have the fits. The other aspect here is we do get a crawl pattern here. Of course, if I were to bring up our RSI, there's a very good possibility we're going to have the divergence, right? So it's telling us lack of momentum, potential reversal. Now, if you actually complement that with the fundamental and macro perspective, right? And the aspect is from last Friday's NFP. The data seems to suggest that US economy is pretty well, and we're looking at likely one more hike as of now, right? We're likely looking at one more hike in November. And the equities market in general, okay, not all the time, but in general, they don't like when the Fed is actually hawkish, right? So if you're gonna see another rate hike, there's a good chance maybe the equities market may see a little bit of pullback. We may see a little bit more downside before maybe eventually, next year can be a super bull run if the Fed starts to cut interest rate very aggressively, right? But we'll leave that. We need to, of course, keep assessing what's happening in the market. But I think, looking at where we are right now, from a technical point of view, from a macro fundamental perspective, going into November, there's a good possibility we may see a little bit more downside in general equities, right? At least in the developed markets over here. Okay, so S&P, definitely you can pay attention to that. We are now, in terms of pound yen, we are now testing that zone. Okay, now there's a good possibility we're going to see a little bit of rejection over here, but for me, I don't really like how this pullback is. Okay, it's pretty fast, not something that ideally we wanted. Of course, ideally we want this slow, right? And of course in three-wave structure, but this is basically a one-wave move. So we'll see, but the idea here is this can of course still push higher, But as long as price is still within this, and of course within the channel, there's a good possibility we'll still see a three-wave move. Okay, so that's on pound yen. Do keep an eye on that. I think you may want to focus on an opportunity to sell it with a target at the bottom here, 182.65. Okay, after which, again, same thing here. This may start to bounce, so you just take profit if you can get the trade down, right? Power Australia here. We are seeing a crawl. This is for sure, right? RSI indicator has a huge divergence. Okay, so definitely no sell, right? But why you ask, why would the directional buyers be bearish is because overall we're bearish. If we can get this, we're more interested to sell it there. Okay, because this is the three-wave expectation. Now, can you look for the buy to the upside? I don't think that's a pretty good idea right now. I mean the room in which you can potentially capitalize is not huge, right? Unless you're doing like really short term, maybe trying to catch some trade within the 30-minute, 50-minute time frame. But if you're not, then my take here is give it sufficient time, because pound Australia is pretty much a volatile pair. Give it sufficient time and see if we can get a pullback, maybe end of this week, early next week. Then we're gonna jump into that sell if we can get a setup come to us, right? So this here potentially is developing a 5-wave structure. Okay, and of course that 5-wave structure then kind of built in. Again, there's not too, to me it's not, you don't need to be like overly concerned like where's this tree, right? But basically you can see 5 very clear, 1 2 3 4 5. So that would then give us a bigger degree wave A, right? So this is where wave B is going to be, and then wave C is going to be the bottom. Okay, so that's the ideal, that's the plan. This week here, I think for good entire week, we'll probably need to give it time to develop. The setup may come to us, as I mentioned, either end of the week or maybe early next week. Okay. BTC over here, we're still neutral. We kind of got a push up. Quite a bit of people got excited, and then in the next couple of days, it just dropped back all the way. Okay. Things like that. Just be patient, right? You don't need to trade Bitcoin when there's nothing. You just focus on other things, right? So this one here, my suggestion is just leave it. There's really nothing for you to trade over here. Okay, so yeah, BTC, just leave it over there. Okay, yeah, so let's take a look at some of the other index over here. Okay, German DAX. Okay, so last week we kind of cover, wait for the pullback. I think we got our first move down. Okay, we got our first move down, so probably a little bit more downside before the buy, right? So if this is gonna come down correctively, naturally you can look for the buy for one more push up, right? This is actually German DAX. Okay. A50. Okay, so A50 actually came back to the territory over here. Right now it's testing that 618. Yeah, so I think this one has a good possibility we'll see a little bit more downside. Okay. The reason for that is we're basically in a bearish move to the downside, and for me, I'm carrying the perspective that this is still the controlling effect. We kind of got to push up and then rejection back down, and then tiny bit of a pullback here. So we may still see a little bit more downside to retest the bottom of the channel before maybe the bigger move back up. Okay. So if you're looking at China index, we want to focus on maybe sell, right? And of course see if you can get a nice little setup around the 618. Okay, I'm kind of testing it now, right? We also have this tree wave, so this is an impulse 1 2 3, right? We kind of have this tree wave there, so you really want to consider paying a little bit more attention if you're trading the China 50. Okay, Hang Seng over here, my take is continue to be patient. If you're looking at buy opportunity, which I think that's a higher possibility of that happening, again, wait for the pullback first. Okay, kind of need to be just patient with it. Okay, so I think this week really nothing much on Hang Seng. Okay, you probably just want to be patient on that. Okay, Nikkei. Kind of testing the top of the channel right now. Okay, so kind of hit that target area that we're talking about. So just be patient, right? Because again, once the market faces a little bit of like resistance here, we have fib areas here, we have three-wave move, that might give us a bigger corrective pullback. Okay. If you can get a corrective pullback, of course, we'll be looking for the breakout trade from there on. But if it gives us an impulsive drop like that, then we won't be looking to buy. We'll look at it maybe if we can get a retest of the bottom before the next move back up, right? So you just need to flow with the market. Okay, so Nikkei right now, don't buy. There's no sell either. Okay, so just probably just leave it over there. Okay, this one potentially may have something maybe within the week. Okay, this is Australia index. Yeah, but basically wait for the pullback, right? Once you get a pullback, look for the buy, right? So this one, there's very clear structure impulse. If you can get a corrective pullback, naturally that's a buy trade. Okay. Yeah. And did not miss out any of the index, right? So those are all the index. Okay, good. So I hope so far so good. You guys are clear in which opportunities that you can keep an eye on and focus on. Question here from Bubar. Between the pound yen, pound dollar, and Aussie dollar, which one has more volume during the NY Open? I would say likely is the pound dollar. Okay, simply put, because during that session, we do have the pound market, which is the UK market, and we have the US market, right? But again, during the London market, during the US market, almost all currencies are being traded. Okay, so I don't think it's too big of a deal, like which is more volume or not. But the idea is generally in the London and US market, we get higher liquidity, right? And that's all we really need. Okay, Moose is asking, what about Aussie Swiss franc and the dollar Swiss franc? Aussie Swiss franc, you can see, right? This is basically very corrective in nature, so there's no reason to be buying it. I think what you want to be focusing on is to get a sell. Okay, to retest the bottom over here. Yeah, so the sell here, of course, there are multiple ways you can jump onto a trade. You can look at it from a breakout perspective. You can look at it from a more conservative, wait for an impulsive break, wait for an hourly pullback. Okay, and then you can jump on to trade from there on. You can jump on from a trade from a breakout H4 perspective. And I think there's a good possibility if we can get an impulsive break, we'll likely hit back this low. That's what the market usually like to do, right? So this is very corrective in nature. Probably get one more drop, double bottom, and then it move back up. Okay, so I think short term on Aussie franc is definitely downside. Dollar franc, this is what I'm looking at right now. If I'm gonna update this a little bit. Okay. I think what we're looking here is a little bit of this development. If we can get it, then of course we'll be looking to buy. Okay, so the pattern here I'm looking at is essentially a leading diagonal, a three-wave pullback, and then more upside. Okay, so if you're looking at sell, it's obviously a very, very short-term thing. Maybe it's within the week. But if you're looking to buy here, I don't think it's going to be this week's trade, because this one ideally shouldn't come down too fast. Probably by next week you get a buy trade if you're looking at a swing perspective on Aussie, on dollar franc. Okay. Yeah, so this is on dollar franc. Okay, US 30, I think you're likely gonna be focusing on a buy setup. We get our impulse move, right? So wait for a corrective pullback, and basically the buy is there. Now the only thing you want to be a little bit concerned, or I would say careful with, is this buy may not go very far, right? You may start to do just a little bit of a, this move down. So this can just develop as a correction like that, and this can then after that make a bigger move back down, right? But again, you don't need to be concerned as of now, right? Because you always want to flow with the market. So what's most prominent right now is if you can get a corrective pullback, we'll look at the buy. By the time the market breaks this, you have sufficient time to shift stops to manage whatever trade, take partial profit, exit it, whatever it is, okay? By the time the market reaches this point, you have good enough time to do whatever you need to, okay? Then after which, you make a decision. Do you want to carry on with these targets, with extended targets, or you just close it and you expect this to come down, right? By then, we have more information that can support the case, right? But for now, what's the closest thing that we can look out for is if this do a corrective pullback, we'll look at the buy. Okay, so this is on US 30, yeah? Okay, good. Hey, another question here. Cat Yen on H4 seems to be tightening into a crawl. Is it good to look for a sell trade? This is something that I would not be paying too much attention to. I mean, for our scale, you can essentially see that we're ding-donging, right? The market is basically consolidating. This is an environment that I don't think is a very nice situation to be looking for trades. We don't really have a crawl, to be honest. On a 4-hour scale, at least we don't see it. Unless the market actually breaks and take out that high, okay, then we may turn into a potential something like that. But again, we are on a 4-hour scale. For that to actually happen and break all this, you have enough time, okay, after the break to assess. Because what we want to assess is not only the break, but how fast is it breaking it, okay? Because if it's just gonna break and then it starts to immediately slow down, forming a smaller crawl at the top over here with this bigger crawl, then that's what we call a leading diagonal, right? So if I kind of put in a little bit of a line here, okay, just to give you the visual perspective, right? And let's say this starts to go higher from there. Take a look at this pattern here and the one that we just talked about in dollar franc. Not exactly the same, okay, but you can see the similarity on that, okay. So dollar franc has already developed this piece, okay. You can see, right, fast up, slow, okay, and then after that it develops the pullback. Now if you go back to Cat Yen, when this goes back up, it's essentially that fast and slow, okay? So it may start to pull back a little bit. So you need to just be patient on this, right? Right now, I think it's definitely not something I would personally suggest to pay too much attention to. Okay. Here we kind of talk about it already, right? So we can potentially look for a sell trade here, with a target at the bottom, right, around 182.65. Yeah, so short term, that's the sell opportunity. Okay, yeah. Oh, good. Cool. Any other questions that you guys have? I think I see one over here. Okay. Yeah, so this is on Bank Nifty. I think some of you guys from India, right? Interested in maybe this particular instrument. I remember this one we kind of cover a little bit like last week as well, right? That's why we have like the existing analysis are still here. Nothing much has changed. This here seems to be developing quite nicely. I can kind of update this a little bit. Put in a channel. Right now we have a little bit more data that we can work on. Okay. So I think since last week until now, it's still basically developing the correction. Right? So, yeah. You basically can look for market to pull back a little bit to the upside. Okay, if it's continued going to develop like that slow, okay, definitely you want to look for a sell. Again, we have the hit and shoulder pattern right here as well. Okay, so quite straightforward. Yeah. Okay. Good. This is the China stock. Okay, Moutai is a beer company, if I'm not alcohol, right? No beer, alcohol company. Yeah, I think we did this like I don't know which session we had, but basically that's the existing analysis. I think nothing has changed, right? Nothing has changed in general. We are still looking at more upside. Okay, and of course this seems to be developing something like that. Okay, so I think general direction nothing has changed. We're basically still bullish. Kind of had a very nice little reaction at that 50% mark. Okay, the only part you need to be a little bit careful is this the entire piece of a retracement, or are we gonna see something like that? Okay, that's the only thing you need to be a little bit cautious on. I mean, if you manage to get involved in the buy, then just shift stops to break even. If this comes back, then look for a re-entry, after which then you exit this at break even, right? Yeah, so nothing is certain, right? We won't know whether this is gonna pull back to complete the tree before the push, or you know, sometimes this is all it is and then it starts to go higher. Now of course you can get clue, right? If this kind of come down incorrectly, then there's a good possibility we'll see more upside from there, and then this would be the bottom for now, right? But the direction overall, nothing has changed. I think it's still bullish. Okay, so there's only two things that you want to look out for. If this is corrective, I think it will likely continue to the upside already. If this decides to come back down, you know, building something like this, then it may break this low to give you the three-wave move before the push back to the upside. Okay, so you probably just want to keep track, you know, day to day how the price is developing. All right. Okay, another one over here. Okay, this one. Okay, companies like that, you probably want to look into the fundamental to help you complement a little bit. But from a technical point of view, we probably don't have too much data point. I mean, you know, this was just listed end of 2015. And since then until now, we basically only can work on this pattern that we see here, right? Okay, and basically this pattern suggests impulse correction, impulse right. Yeah, and it's not good for the company from a technical point of view if this, you know, it's indicating high potential of a drop. So that's why I say you want to look into the fundamental as well. If this company indeed is not doing well, okay, from a fundamental point of view, then of course you can definitely look to sell this. But if the company is solid, you know, and things like that, then when fundamental and technical is not aligned for stock market, um, depending again on your style, right? If you're trading it, you can still always put more priority on technicals. But if you're looking at investment perspective, then of course the fundamentals are more important from here, right? So there's a good chance maybe this will go up a little bit more, but the technical seems to suggest after which downside. Oh, not this company. I think it's this one, right? It's this. Uh, oh, okay. Oh, okay. Same number, different, very different instrument. Okay, so this one here, we're coming down. Did push up, so let's see the big picture perspective. Okay, we may have completed the right shoulder. May have. The part is, of course, price has already broke this low. Okay, and that would essentially be a completed, can be, right? Can be a completed move. And we can start to see more upside from here, right? So what you need to look out for is, okay, how the price is going to react from here on. Okay, if it's going to come down giving you a corrective move, then you can take it the fact that this may have been bottom and look for upside. But if you don't get a corrective move here, and let's say the market starts to chop back down, do all this move correctively here, starts to range a little bit bigger, be careful, because that means that we're looking at this as an impulse correction and it can still drop. Okay, so right now you just need to monitor going forward what is price gonna develop from here. Okay, yeah, but if you're looking at buy, I think that's okay from a longer term perspective. Again, you want to look into the fundamentals, right? I always say companies, if you're buying it long term, consider fundamental. Okay, good. There's that. If someone asks, can we see a divergence at NASDAQ? Yes. Okay, so we do have a divergence here, right? So that's basically a divergence. Okay, a divergence is quite straightforward, right? Price is going one direction, our indicator is going another direction. That's a divergence. Okay, ES50, I think that's quite similar to S&P, right? So S&P over here, I think this week you focus on downside. So if you look at ES, which is the mini futures, okay, well, that's the same, right? So we're looking at a pullback. I don't have a notation here because the analysis are often done in CFD, right? But you can see the price movement is more or less the same, so you can apply the same principle, right? So if CFDs are coming down, if you look at ES futures, same thing, right? It's likely gonna come down. Okay, Swiss yen. Yeah, the daily does suggest that we may be expecting at least some kind of a pullback soon. Okay. Now the market, whenever you see overextension, usually does a pullback. Okay, so same thing here, right? Kind of extended, pullback, extended, pullback. So same thing, extended. Likely something like this may happen. Okay, so it may not be like a total reversal. Okay, it may or may not be, right? But the idea is whenever you see that, in terms of context, you're already here and the market has actually moved up quite a bit, we don't really have much of a significant pullback, you just be patient, right? Don't buy in here. Okay. Yeah, so hopefully that gives you an idea. Okay, yeah. Yeah, if you're looking at, zoom in a little bit, if you're talking about this kind of top, to me, I think that's a 4-hour chart, right? 4-hour triple top. Yeah, so you can consider that, but just have in mind that sometimes the market can give you, one more kind of like fake break and then only drop. Okay, so just be careful on that. Good. Okay, good. Um, Okay, Bank Nifty for intraday, then you can look for a buy first, right? So I mean, we are expecting this to push up a little bit, right? So if you're looking at shorter term, if you can get a pullback correction here, then that would be a nice little buy trade short term. Okay. Good. Yeah, so I hope today's session has been helpful. Okay. Good. So what I'm gonna do here is to very quickly share with you a upcoming webinar that we're gonna run. Okay. And basically, I just want to share with you that for those of you who are not familiar, with PAN, okay, just want to show you our updated current result of this. This is basically on my FX book. Okay. Yeah. So the account that we run on this, okay, started in May this year, and these are the performance, right? I mean, we just concluded August. So I'm able to update you guys in terms of like for the past 4 months. These are performance, of course. June and August is a bit slower. But again, I would say nothing much to complain, right? You're basically still making money out of it. But on average, if you average out 4 months, I think that's still about 2 to 3% per month, or even higher than that if you kind of average it. Yeah. So what I'm doing here is to let you know that this coming Saturday, okay, which is the 9th of September, 3 p.m. to 4:30 p.m. We're gonna have an online webinar talking about EA PAM trading. And basically this one here that you see, that's the results of the EA PAM account. Okay, and you have the option, okay, you have the choice if you want to, that you can actually tag along to this particular account, which means something similar in the concept and the principle of copy trading, but it's not really copy trading. It's called PAM. So if you're actually new to this and you want to understand a little bit more, like what is the EA, we call it expert advisor. How do we use EA to understand what is EA, to help us automate a lot of our processes in trading. Okay, the benefits of it, what are some of the things you need to take note of. Then do join us this coming Saturday webinar, right? I'll actually drop the link over here for you guys to register if you wish to. Again, this is online, which means you can actually join us anywhere in the world. Okay, and after the session, if you understood what is EA, what is PAM, and you feel that this is something that you will want to take advantage of, okay, by tagging it into this account here so that everything is automated for you, then you'll be able to do it, right? And the thing about PAM, we are right now running it is free, right? Which means you don't need to pay any additional costs, okay, to tag your account, and then follow these trades, okay, and enjoy the trades that we're taking in this account, right? You basically just have what we call a small little profit share. Okay, so after at the end of the month, when there's certain profit made, it'll be actually split accordingly, right? And net, okay, you keep majority of the profits being made. So if this is something that might be interesting to you, you're not very familiar with it, then I would strongly encourage you to join the upcoming webinar this coming Saturday. Okay, again, do register for the webinar if you're interested, because you would need to receive the link in order for you to join in. Okay, yeah, so yeah, that's from my side today. Good. Okay, yeah, so I hope today's session can give you an idea in terms of the overview of this week. Okay, what to take note of, some of the instruments that you guys are trading, hopefully giving you some different insights as well. Okay, so all the best to your trading. I'll be seeing you guys this Saturday. For those of you who are interested, make sure you register so that you can get the link. Okay, so that's all for me. All the best, and see you guys. Bye bye.